what's up? It's Joe Rady from Rady's Rides. I'm back here at Moss Nissan in Newport Richey, Florida, and guess what? We have it. This is a 2020 Nissan 370Z, the end of an era. But before we dive into this one, let's talk a little history about the Nissan Z car. Been around for 50 years, if you could believe that. And no, even though it may seem like it's been around for 50 years, this 370Z hasn't been the only model over that period of time. It all started 50 years ago. It was the 240Z. Then it grew in displacement. It actually grew in a little bit of size as well. 260, keep growing, 280. And then of course, my personal favorite, especially like a 1990 300ZX twin turbo. I remember being in middle school, I had a neighbor that had one and I would ride my bike by his house every single day just to get a look of that beautiful car. Now, this generation technically started in 2003, known as the Nissan 350Z. Then, just like we went from 240 to 260 to 280, it has grown in displacement and also some refresh in design. Now, it's been a while, not a lot of changes. The reason why I'm doing this review is I want to try to help those that have that question. If you want to buy a sports car that's under 30,000 and something that has maybe some performance and style within that 30,000 or less, is the Nissan 370Z the way to go? Or should you go maybe Toyota 86 or Subaru BRZ? But let's go ahead, let's dive into this 2020 370Z, because guess what? Hopefully by the time we're done with this review, we'll have the 400Z available, because it is coming. Right off the bat, the styling. So in 2003 with the 350Z, they were going for that retro style, and they really did hit the retro style nail on the head. If you look at any of those 240Zs, 260Zs, overall that same basic shape. Now with the 370, they rechanged the headlight housing. You can see that almost like arrow, it's almost like an Indian arrow, Native American arrow shape to it. Blacked out interior, some bright silver, you have your projector beam style headlight. You drop down, you have some more exterior lighting, but the great news is no fake vents. And it's really smooth, almost looks like a white jelly bean, like a coconut jelly bean. Now, as we come across the front, it's that same look. These cars, when they go down the road, people know what they are because they've been around since the beginning of time. You got your Nissan badge, flat black. Obviously, we're gonna feed air into that front radiator. What's nice is this white is a pearlescent white, so it really sparkles very nicely with the Florida sun, but you could see the aerodynamic intentions off the front of this vehicle. Now, when we get onto the hood of the 370Z, you have two rises that start a little bit past where the hood opening is and then go all the way towards the windshield. Very, very clean. It's got that low, wide look. Now, as we come around the bend, this 370Z is basically just a base 370Z, your entry model. What are we working with? You have an 18-inch wheel. So if we're gonna compare this to a BRZ or an FRS, you are looking at a bigger size wheel. So you have metallic gray, dark metallic gray finish. It's a pretty clean looking design, nothing too crazy, but 18-inch wheel. When we're looking at our sidewall, believe it or not, these have 50 series sidewalls on them, so they're kind of beefy. Good news is you're gonna get a more comfortable ride, 225 on the width, and you can see the fully ventilated rotors, real clean from behind the wheel there. Now, as we go into the fender, I love the way it kind of flares out here, comes down, you got your Z badge, and then going down the side of the vehicle, you're actually gonna have color match mirror caps, which is nice. And then the roof line is very, very low, and the way it slopes back is just really looks sexy. Even though it's been around forever, still looks sexy. I love the way you have a raised area above the passenger and the driver's side, similar to what you would find on a Supra. Now, a couple years ago, they went with a little bit darker chrome finish on the door handles, and then you can see how that rear fender kind of flares out. At the back, we're looking at 245, so we get a little bit more meat to the rear, because guess what? Just like the BRZ, just like the FRS, this has rear-wheel drive capability, but that's a 245 on the width. I think the color of the wheel and the color of this car really stands out nicely. Going into the back, coming down that sloping roof, this is a hatchback. This whole area raises. No deck lid spoiler or anything like that. You would have to go maybe Nismo. They could get a totally different rear hatch area and that rear bumper fascia, but 370Z badging, Similar shape to the rear taillights like we saw up front. And then as we drop down, you have your gloss black diffuser area, like that it has the dual exhaust, nice slash cut, but overall, a very tidy package with a nice fat flared rear end. I love a nice size rear end. But let's go ahead, pop the hood and see what's powering this 370Z. All right guys, we got the hood popped. It does have a prop rod. I am gonna zonk it because of the position of it is just terrible. Underneath that though, look at that. You have a massive strut tower brace, gonna stiffen up the front end of this Nissan Z. And the great news is tasteful engine cover. Like you see there, V6. So if you go BRZ, if you go FRS, you're stuck with a flat 4, 2-liter flat 4. You go Nissan 370Z. What are we talking about? We're talking about that 3.7-liter V6 engine, 332 horsepower, 270 pound-feet of torque. It's all mated to either a 6-speed manual transmission or a 7-speed automatic. The car weighs around 3,497 pounds. MPGs 19 in the city, 26 on the highway, 0 to 60 in about 5 seconds. Underneath the hood, I like the engine cover. Really, that front engine, rear-wheel drive sports car. This, you only have 2 seats. FRS 86, BRZ, you do have back seats, but they're really not usable. But definitely horsepower-wise, 332 horsepower compared to 205 or 200, depending on whether you go manual or automatic. So definitely the 370Z has been around so long, it's almost like the same car. Definitely wins in the horsepower numbers. Let's fire it up and see what kind of sound that V6 makes. All right, guys, we're inside the 2020 Nissan 370Z. I know you're probably saying, well, Joe, I am actually looking for a new sports car. I don't want to buy used. I want to buy brand new. I've earned it. How much is this? You're looking at MSRP around $30,000. That really falls in the same price point line as a Toyota 86 or a Subaru BRZ. Let's see what you get for the money. Now, to the door panels, the great news is you have nice soft material up top. The door handle definitely looks a little dated, that bright silver. Where I'm gonna zonk it is the cloth. Cloth on an armrest and the back of a door panel just sounds gross to me, especially as it ages. You do have a small pocket down there for a couple granola bars and some water to wash it all down. But if you notice, the AC vent's actually built into the door. So the door's gotta be closed for you to feel air coming out of that vent. Soft touch material. I like the way the dash is very far forward. You get the traditional, go back, look at pictures of the 240Z, 260Z, 280Z. You have your 3 gauges up top, oil coolant, you have your volt, and you have a nice digital clock. Looks dated, looks like it's back from 1985 Casio. It would have been nice to have maybe oil pressure gauge there rather than a clock. Coming down, you have this stitch leather material on this little compartment here, so you could put your Twinkies easily available and they're not going to get scratched. Nobody wants a scratched Twinkie. We close that up. Very, very dated. Here's where, if you look at the infotainment system, even though it's really not that great in a BRZ or an 86, this is just extremely dated. Back during a time when, hey, we didn't even have infotainment system screens. You do have start-stop button, nicely placed. You got your standard AC controls. This one has the 7-speed automatic transmission. If you're wondering, well, Joe, if there's no infotainment system screen, where is the backup camera? Backup camera actually comes up in the mirror. Very small, it's about the size of a postage stamp. So every time you put this in reverse, you gotta lick the shifter because it's like licking a stamp. That's about the size of it. Hard plastic, this is where, compared to the BRZ, even though the BRZ is not like a Cadillac, I think the BRZ wins definitely on the center stack, the center console. I like the soft material here, the stitch work. This is the button to pop the hatch. Here's your key fob. So if you like biblical times, this came out during around when Noah built his ark. It gets the job done. Lock, unlock, and the I'm crapping myself button. One cup holder. So you have one cup holder here. The other two are in the door panels. Soft rubber material on the armrest. Pop it up And guess what? You could put a couple Snickers in there. You do have a USB, an aux jack, and a 12-volt. Good old-fashioned e-brake, just like in the BRZ or the 86. Seats, full cloth, and they're not the greatest. The bolstering's kind of weird. What really is bothersome is the bottom portion of the seat. It does not come out very far. So somebody like myself with very long legs, I still got a lot of material, hence my legs, hanging over the edge of the seat, and it doesn't feel good. Plenty of headroom though. You put on a helmet if you're gonna do a track day, autocross event, plenty of room for a helmet. But why don't you come over to the business end, I'll show you behind the wheel of this 370Z. All right guys, business time. It's interesting, looking at you, the way that I'm positioned, this almost feels like the Supra. And the reason why I'm not comparing the Supra to this car is the Supra's performance and price is much higher. You do have the manual seat controls, and they really suck because it's like you gotta crank them. So in the seat department, BRZ hands down. My wife's BRZ, the seats are way better than in here. Now what's cool about the steering wheel is when you go to adjust it, you actually adjust the gauges as well. That's kind of cool. But this digital stuff, like I said, go back to 1988. That's what we were playing Tetris on our Game Boys on that digital setup. But I do like the nice large tach in the center with that very nice high red line, 7,500 RPM red line. You do have your gear indicator in there, and then an analog speedometer with digital odometer in the lower right-hand corner. Steering though, the steering wheel has a nice thickness to it. I kind of like the way the buttons are dated because they're super small and they don't take up a lot of room. It would be nice for it to be a flat bottom steering wheel, but still has great grip and not a lot of junk all over it, which is awesome. Looking out front, visibility is actually pretty good. The way they have the A-pillars far apart. Let's go ahead, see how usable. Because remember, BRZ, even though it's smaller than this car, is quite usable with its trunk. Let's check out underneath that hatch and see how usable this 370Z is. All right, guys, time to pop the back. We popped it up. You lift up, look at all this room. What's also amazing to see, even on the standard base model, you have a massive strut tower brace out back. That's gonna stiffen up not only the back, we stiffen up the front, we need to stiffen up the back as well. Plenty of cargo space back here. So if you're thinking that with two seats, you can't do your daily driving, you can. BRZ, it's one of those things where I think you're gonna have almost the same amount of room. The plus side about the BRZ is I think you're gonna be able to put things a little taller, whereas here it's a little more shallow of a cargo area. But why don't we go ahead, let's get to the best part of any sports car. If you're ready, I'm ready. Let's take this 370Z for a spin. All right guys, we're in the 2020 Nissan 370Z. I think really the sore spot on the interior is just how dated it is. Lots of hard plastic and lots of plastic that it looks its age, and that's really where, compared to the 86 or the BRZ, even though, like I said, those aren't, you know, like riding in a Rolls Royce or something, but it definitely has a leg up on the interior when it comes to the materials and whatnot. One thing I am missing inside the 370 is a little bit of rawness. Like, one of the things that I love about a BRZ or an 86 is that it has this rawness to it that it makes you feel like you're driving a sports car, import sports car from like the 1990s in a really good way. Whereas this is just more smooth, it's quieter inside. I think automatic wise, the automatic in this 370 is way better than the automatic in a BRZ or an 86. I personally would go manual, of course, which both of them have a 6-speed. The 6-speed in the BRZ and the 86 has a much more mechanical feel, shorter throws compared to the manual in the 370Z. But looking out the front, visibility is great. Out the back, it's on the tight side, but it's one of those things that it's a compromise. That's one of the things you put up with when you're driving a sports car. It's just the seats in here. That's one thing where the seats in a BRZ or an 86 are much more comfortable and better bolstered than these seats. The cloth, I really feel like you're just gonna slip and slide from corner to corner. There's no paddles on the steering wheel, so I'm just gonna leave it in automatic mode. You can shift with the shifter. That shifter is probably one of the most unattractive shifters probably available currently on the market. It looks like the wheel off of a office chair. So if you flip an office chair over, it looks like the wheel and the arm that connects it to the chair. But having the tach smack dab in the center, really clear, easy to read. And you do have that usable space behind you for doing those daily driving activities. I mean, the cool thing about buying a brand new 370Z is you're getting that little older feeling, which is good when it comes to the driving aspect of it, but in a brand new car that's got a full warranty. If you don't want to go pre-owned, if you're telling me, Joe, I don't want to buy somebody else's headache, I don't want to buy somebody else's mistake, I want to get new, then here you are in a 2020 Nissan Z, which has been around for a while. But let's see how acceleration is. I'm going to come to a stop here. All right, we're sitting here ready for on throttle from a dead standstill. On throttle, here we go. Little bit of traction loss, traction control kicks in and we're off. You do get a pretty interesting sound from the front end of the car. Definitely not the sexiest of engine notes, but it does produce some sound for you to enjoy while you're driving. The shifts are super smooth in this 7-speed, and it just blows my mind because I wish that they would use this transmission across their whole lineup of all their sedans and whatnot. Steering has a nice feel, nice weight. We'll see what it's like once we get this, a couple more twisty bits. I'm probably gonna say it's not up there with the BRZ, but let's see how it goes. On throttle, on the brakes, good feedback from the pedal, tipping it in here. Not too bad. On throttle, it still does not feel as directly connected as a BRZ or an 86. But definitely you can feel the extra power that's in this Nissan 370Z compared to those two. Soaks up the bumps fairly well over this, not the smoothest of roads. But brake feedback is actually pretty good in here. Going in this right-hand turn, tight turns here. Feels composed. Just when you get back on throttle, you're waiting. You're just waiting for it to drop down to get you off and running with this automatic. See, I just got on it and I'm waiting. It's a waiting game. But brakes feel actually pretty good. Steering could just have a little bit more feel, a little bit more feedback. Brakes into this right-hand bend. Nice. Back comes around just a little bit, just to help you square off the turn. Pretty smooth. I think one of the things that I've noticed that's really bothered me a lot driving this 370Z are the blind spots from the rear pillars. It makes it really hard to really see what's going on because the mirrors, they're decent, but you're not really seeing much down the side of the car, so you really, well, if you have a passenger in the car, want to ask them for some help because it is a pretty heavy blind spot. I'm going to come to a stop here, and we are going to put it into manual shift mode, and we're going to manually shift here. So on throttle, here we go, first gear. Nice. Definitely shifting faster than manual and then automatic. Downshift one. Into second gear, nice weight to the steering, here we go, on throttle, on the brakes, downshift, coming out of the turn. Still, I wish there was a little bit more feedback, and the shift pattern is reversed. I don't like pulling down to downshift, I like pushing forward. Definitely allows you to really use the power band a lot more efficiently than if you are just letting the automatic shift through the gears for you. Soaks up the bumps fairly well. On the brakes, gotta remember, pull back the downshift into second gear, back on throttle. Wants to pivot, which is nice. A little bit of pivot, help you square off the turn. So definitely you're going to be able to use more of the power band doing the manual shifting. The only thing is for me, I'm used to downshifting, you push forward, upshifting, you push back. It's totally flip-flop, which sucks. But you can manually shift with the shifter. Just save yourself all the hassle and get yourself a 6-speed, and then you won't have to worry about any of that garbage. But hopefully this gave you a nice overall feel of what this Nissan 370Z is all about when comparing it to an 86 or a BRZ. We're gonna get back to Moz Nissan and wrap this up, so I'll see you in a split second. All right, guys, it's been another great day here at Moz Nissan. I definitely got to thank David, Moz, Christian, the rest of the crew, getting us access to this 2020 Nissan Z. I think if you're looking for a sports car and you want something that is light but also handles well, I think this 370Z checks off a lot of boxes. You might want to go and drive a BRZ or an 86 and really feel the difference. I think in the handling department, BRZ and 86 hands down is going to out-handle this 370Z, but straight line acceleration, obviously having that V6 power, more horsepower, gives you a leg up on that other competition. But if it's cars like these and questions like these that you want to keep seeing on the channel, leave a comment in the comment section. If you're new and you're on your way out, hit the subscribe button. I promise you it's worthwhile. Come back for more. If you are a subscriber, thank you for being part of the Radies Rise family. If you want to help us keep making great content just for you on the channel, click the link in the description, get yourself some Radies Rise merch. Got to get out to Big Guns McGee. He loves the 370Z. He doesn't want to see it change. So Tom, they'll always be available for you. And just like always, I'll see you on the next ride.